Without a doubt, I know men who are active dating, trying to talk to different women and experiencing that have always found women who looked extremely good on the outside, but on the inside, complete chaos, destruction, all of that. But a lot of the times we can't necessarily tell. So I'm going to give you 3 specific questions that you should ask that will either tell you that she's somebody who's solid or somebody who is a walking time bomb that will destroy your entire life if you allow her or if you give her the time to be able to do that, if you pursue her further than like a first date or something like that. And the most important thing you have to understand, man, like first dates are always about talking and trying to learn the person more without directly asking them specific questions that threaten them, right? You're not hosting an interrogation. You're hosting an open conversation. She's going to ask you questions. You're going to ask her questions. And I've noticed that every date that I've gone on, I've always had great dates, right? I've always had great dates. I've always led to whatever it is that I wanted to do at the end of the day. There was maybe 1 or 2 times in my life where like, it just didn't go well. And a lot of the reason was not understanding how to frame certain questions and not understanding like where that person's head is, right? So I remember, man, when I was on the scene, I'm not on the scene anymore. I'm taking all of that, feel good. But when I was dating, I was always trying to learn more about the woman. And I was always trying to figure out indirect questions to ask that could tell me their character without them even knowing that I was trying to understand their character. Because the thing is, a lot of women will come on first dates and they'll wear a mask. They'll wear a mask of a woman that they think that you would want. They'll tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you everything. And then once you get into that relationship, it's completely different. Or once you get into a long-term situation with them, it's a completely different story. So the first question you have to ask is, what did your father or what did your dad teach you that stuck with you? That's the first question you should ask. And the reason why you ask this question is because you want to know if she even had a relationship with her dad. You want to know how that relationship dynamic is. Did she have a father figure? Because what I've learned is that women who are chaotic, women who tend to not do well dating other men and almost destroy men's lives, and this isn't all women, but this is something that I can generalize. They tend to have a very, very weird, bad relationship with their dad. So if she's answering you and she's saying, well, no, I don't really talk to my dad. Like we have a very bad relationship where like I don't really have a good relationship with my dad. That's already red flag number 1. You already know. You're like, okay, so there's 2 things that can happen, right? 1, she'll never respect you because she doesn't know how to respect a man because she's never had to do that in her life, right? 2, she'll always have some critical eye with everything that you do because she doesn't trust men. Right? If she doesn't trust her father, if she doesn't have a good relationship with her father, she's not going to trust a lot of men because where could she have practiced that, right? Maybe with other men, well, breakups happened, right? Those breakups fracture the trust that she has in men anyway. So it's always going to be an uphill battle with women who don't have good relationships with their father, right? Like that's something that's very, very important to me. Even in my relationship that I have, like I was always very, very impressed, man. Like when I was dating my girl, it was always just like, calling her dad, talking to her dad every day, talking to her dad and her mom, talking to her dad consistently, having a good relationship, having a really, really solid foundation with her dad. That was one thing that I noticed that was super, super important. And I've had other women that I've dated that it didn't work out and it went completely sideways. They had bad relationships with their dads or they had non-existent relationships with their dad because their dad was never in the picture. So they become very dysfunctional. So that's the first thing that you always have to ask. Now, the second thing, this is going to be super critical, right? And this is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily ask, but it's very, very important, is if you could do anything over in your previous relationship, what would it be? Or what could you have done better in your previous relationship? Now, this is an indirect question to understand her accountability levels. Right? You have to understand if she has accountability for herself, if she's going to take accountability for her actions, is she going to blame the other guy? Because a lot of women who tend to blame the guy that they're with tend to not take responsibility for their actions or for what they did. Because any breakup, there's always going to be 2 sides of the coin that didn't work. It's never just going to be one-sided. Even though you may think a breakup happened and you have to blame it on the other person, you always have to self-reflect and say, how could I do better? And as a woman who is solid, she's going to literally say that she could have done all of these things better, right? or this is what could have changed. This is what she could have done. She's not going to blame the guy. She's not going to put the guy under the bus. She won't do that. If she does that, then she has low self-accountability, and that's going to be a liability in a relationship if that's what you're looking for, right? And I think the critical part that you have to understand about all of this is like, she doesn't even know that this is like literally an interrogation process, right? She has no idea. She has no idea that you're screening at this point. It's a casual conversation. You're probably bouncing, but she's asking you questions, probably surface level questions that she, or maybe even advanced questions that she knows that will give her certain answers for what she's looking for. But you have to ask that second question because it's very, very important. I found that a lot of women who blame the other guy, or they say, oh, he was a nobody. He was the worst person in the world. Like, I can't believe I dated this guy. And they start going down this rabbit hole of blaming the guy, right? Consistently. It's always a sign of get out. If she does not answer this in the right way, get out, because you're next. Everything that you do will be blamed. Everything that you do in that relationship that you create with this woman, whether it's casual, whether it's whatever, she will always blame you. So you always have to make sure that you're with a woman that has some level of self-accountability, right? Now, the third thing, and this one, I didn't actually realize that this was something that was very crucial. And what I'm going to say is going to really piss off a lot of people, but it's true. Be direct with this, but be very open, be very caring, and make sure that your tone is very, very soft. Don't be too harsh about it. Don't sound like you're interrogating. Almost dance around it. And I've had to learn how to do this because in the beginning I was really, really harsh with this, right? And I was really just saying it as it was. It didn't hurt my chances with the woman at all, but I could tell that it was a sore topic, right? And the question is, have you ever used like antidepressants or anxiety medication? I'm always curious because I've thought about them and I've always seen a lot of studies on them, but I don't really understand like how they actually make people feel. And just start that off as a topic to just talk about. That's what you guys have to understand. And this may not work for everybody, right? Some people don't like these types of dates. They want surface level shit. I don't like surface level dates. I don't like surface level conversations with anybody, to be honest. I always go into deep conversations with everybody, and that actually helps me connect with people a lot better. But with women specifically, it's like, these are very, very like conversations that will get them to think a lot, and they'll see that you have some depth to you, right? Especially if you look pretty good, you move properly, you do everything properly, you have everything else handled, you're well put together. You start talking about this, it puts you at a certain level of authority in her mind where she actually falls for you a lot more, especially when she doesn't actually answer these incorrectly or they don't make her feel uncomfortable, right? Now, if the woman says that she does have a history or she is taking anxiety medications or antidepressant medications, in your mind, get out. Period, point blank. I'm gonna tell you this straight up, bro. As a dude who has dealt with a lot of women who've had that and also dealt with a lot of women who didn't have that, I will tell you the difference is night and day. Because what you guys don't understand is that these anxiety medications, these antidepressants, what they do is they dull the emotions and the overall feeling of a person who uses it. I've had to study this shit because I did have a situation where this was a big thing, and it did critically hurt the relationship, like over time. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And had I caught this early, I would have saved myself a lot of time, and I would have saved myself a lot of like just headaches and shit like that, right? But you have to understand the reason why this person may be taking that is because they may have went through some crazy trauma in life. And if you do date a woman who has a lot of trauma, who has a lot of things that went on, it's going to be very, very hard to develop a solid relationship. It's going to be very, very hard to even like develop a certain level of trust. Even like your sexual relationship's going to get all fucked up. Like, people don't think about this, bro. Like, that shit affects your sex drive. You're going to start feeling like, bro, like I'm not getting what I need. I got to go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And it's just going to be a consistent thing. And there may be some underlying patterns or some traumas that went on in their life that will now creep into like whatever situation that you have with her, if it's long term or even if it's shorter long term, right? Maybe you're just like with her a couple times. I say this broadly because a lot of you guys, I don't know, I don't like the fact that guys are just dating just to have sex. Like, I think that's kind of stupid, to be honest. I think the manosphere has pushed that. And I had that phase. I'm not going to lie. I did have that phase, but I quickly phased out of it when I realized like this is wasting my time. Like I want someone who's solid that can actually add to my life, that can stay in my life. I'm not about to just be on dates just to have sex. Like, bro, you're a grown man at this point, right? Like you should be able to want to screen out women and pick the best one, right? Or if you're somebody who wants multiple, pick the best ones, whatever that is. I don't recommend that shit. That shit is horrible. But the reality is you have to ask that question. And if she says that she's never taken it before, green flag, good. Because I'm telling you, that messes up the dynamic completely, bro. You might get into the relationship and you start seeing a completely different side of that person, right? When they try to, you know, get off of it, it becomes a problem. When they're on it, they're very, very null. They're very, very just dull and just like completely emotionless. And you just, it's like you're with a walking corpse, right? So you have to be able to make sure that that's not in the history. Now, birth control is optional, right? A lot of guys, they're okay with birth control. I've had women who've taken birth control. Now, no, like we know, like in Eastern Europe, bro, there's no, most of the women here don't do birth control at all. Obviously, I met my girl in the US. So when she said that she didn't take birth control ever, that was a fucking surprise to me. But I could tell the difference, bro. Like, it's just a completely different experience because obviously with birth control, it does change the hormone levels and the mood fluctuations and everything like that. It's just too many chemicals to mess with, right? So you want to be able to get with somebody who genuinely has a solid, clean history of no anti-anxiety, no antidepressant. Birth control, yeah, I mean, you can take that if you want to. That's not a hard no in my mind, but the other stuff, if you can ask these 3 questions, bro, and you can open up a dialogue about it. And what you'll find, and what I've found, is that it will start to unlock a lot of things in the woman's mind, and they actually get really vulnerable when these questions are asked. Like, I've had women cry on dates with me, like not crying in a bad way, but like open up so much. And it gets to a point where they become attached to you because they finally opened up to somebody because somebody asked them a real question for once, right? Which again is a red flag too, because then that means that there's a lot of unhealed traumas. There's a lot of shit that you're gonna have to deal with in the future. You gotta exit and run. But the reality is, these are the main 3 questions that you should ask as a man. If you're screening women, if you're dating and you're trying to figure out what's good, because the reality is a lot of guys don't necessarily know like what to talk about on first dates or what to talk about with women. It's like, bro, I get deep into not pause because women, but I get really, really like below the surface when it comes to questions that I ask, because I want to know somebody's psyche. I want to understand how they think. I want to understand all of the different unconscious patterns that they have. So I asked these 3 strategic questions, and I have a lot more as well. But these are the 3 main strategic questions that you can ask that will give you a good understanding of whether or not you should take this person seriously or not. All right. So hopefully this was valuable for you. Again, I'm not a dating guru at all, but I'm just giving you my experience. This is what I've found. It's definitely subjective. It may not, it may be something that some guys don't want to say, but this is something that will give you the answers to the questions that you might have in your head of whether or not this girl is solid or not, right? And it'll give you good topics to just bounce off, and you can just like, you can go through like multiple subtopics within that, right? As the conversation flows. And now you have a date where like you actually have some shit to talk about. And that's gonna make the woman actually love you even more. Like on that first date, bro. Like if you're able to ask these types of questions, you're good. Even if she answers the right way, she's gonna be like, wow, this person's actually introspective. He's not some airhead balloon that just says surface level shit. Oh, you're so cute. Oh, where are you originally from? Bro, you gotta go deeper than that. You know what I mean? And push yourself to go deeper than that. Push yourself to get into uncomfortable tension points, because that's what's gonna allow for the conversation to be very, very lively. It's going to tell you a lot. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If you have any questions about this, put that in the comment section. Links will be in the description if you want to have my multidimensional man playbook. I have that for free. Link will be in the description for that. That's going to be in the hub that I have with all of my resources, all of my paid programs, courses, mentorship, all of that will be in there. If you want any access to me in any which way, shape, or form, all of that will be in there. But I hope this was valuable for you. I'll catch you on the next video.